What would happen if the most crucial evidence of a crime were buried at a depth that science could never reach? For decades, the sands of Gilgo Beach guarded the secrets of a predator. They served as a geological archive of horrors, a silent tomb that justice could barely comprehend. The world first saw the face of Rex Heuermann in 2023, but the story we were told was incomplete. Many thought the case was closed with the initial indictments. They were wrong. In April 2026, the silence was finally shattered. New excavations have revealed what time tried to erase: the definitive link between Heuermann and the victims the system left behind. Through technology that defies our perception of reality, advanced sediment analysis and fresh genetic profiles have torn apart decades of mystery. Today, on Cold Case Archive, we excavate the truth that the Long Island serial killer believed he had buried forever. Everything changed this spring. The secret wasn't just in the human DNA, but in the very earth that surrounded it. In April 2026, an elite team of forensic geologists returned to Ocean Parkway. They weren't just looking for remains. They were searching for thermal disturbance signatures, using new ultra-wideband ground-penetrating radar. Investigators were able to see through sediment layers that hadn't been moved in over 20 years. The Earth has a memory. When Rex Heuermann dug shallow graves in those dunes, he altered the mineral composition of the soil forever. The technology of 2026 allowed experts to identify exactly where the ground had been wounded. These new excavations identified disposal sites that had been overlooked in every previous search. These weren't random locations. They were points strategically chosen within the so-called coastal shadows, surveillance blind spots that the predator mapped out with the precision of an architect. The evidence recovered in these new search zones has shifted the weight of the case from circumstantial to irrefutable. The most terrifying revelation of this new phase of the investigation came from something microscopic. In soil layers untouched since the early 2000s, forensic experts recovered fragments of burlap fiber. But this wasn't ordinary burlap. 2026. Chemical analysis revealed a specific molecular signature, a combination of industrial pollutants and fungi that could only exist in a very specific environment. When cross-referenced with new searches conducted at Heuermann's residence in Massapequa Park, the match was absolute. The material found in the dunes of Gilgo Beach shared the exact chemical footprint of the suspect's basement. The predator believed that the ocean salinity and the acidic erosion of the sand would destroy all physical evidence. He trusted that geology would be his accomplice in erasing his bloody history. But he underestimated the progress of time. Heuermann's mask isn't just falling. It is being ripped away by the very earth he used to hide the trail of his victims. And what genetics is about to reveal regarding the identities of these people is about to shock the world once again. For years, they were the nameless shadows of the Gilgo Beach investigation. To the public, they were known only by cold, descriptive labels: Peaches and the Toddler. Found in 2011, their identities remained a void in the heart of the case until the breakthroughs of spring 2026. Traditional DNA testing had reached its limit, but the advent of high-resolution genetic sequencing has finally given these victims back their voices. The 2026 forensic update didn't just provide a name, it provided a narrative. By bypassing the common degradation of DNA found in coastal environments, investigators were able to reconstruct full genetic profiles. The results were staggering. Not only were these victims identified, but their connection to the wider web of Rex Heuermann's crimes became impossible to ignore. For the families who spent over 2 decades in a state of agonizing uncertainty, this spring brought an emotional closure that seemed destined to never come. The ghosts of Gilgo Beach finally have their names etched back into history. How did 2026 technology bypass the dead ends of the past? The secret lies in advanced genealogical mapping combined with fresh genetic profiles recovered from the 2026 excavation sites. Investigators didn't just find the victim's DNA. They found microscopic biological markers that directly linked the remains to the Heuermann family tree. This wasn't a coincidence. The forensic link revealed a chilling pattern of proximity. The genetic data suggests that Heuermann didn't just select his victims at random. He operated with a terrifying knowledge of his surroundings, exploiting a coastal shadow strategy that allowed him to move undetected for years. The 2026 technology created a perfect match between the unique burlap fibers found at the new site and the microscopic DNA traces recovered from encrypted drives seized in the latest search warrant. The digital and the biological have finally converged, dismantling the defense's claims of a second perpetrator. The evidence doesn't just point to Heuermann. It anchors him to the very foundation of these crimes. This discovery has forced a complete reconstruction of the predator's timeline. Based on the newly discovered burial sites and historical cell site data analyzed with 2026 AI precision, investigators now believe Heuermann's spree began much earlier than previously suspected. We are looking at a predator who exploited the geography of Ocean Parkway during the early 2000s with the calculated coldness of a professional. The evidence suggests that he believed his earliest crimes were geologically erased, hidden deep enough that no radar or dog could ever find them. He operated in the coastal shadows, using his knowledge of architecture and land surveying to find the most stable, yet most hidden, areas of the dunes. But what he didn't count on was the Earth's ability to hold a grudge. As we dismantle his movements year by year, the chilling reality emerges. The Long Island serial killer wasn't just a monster hiding in plain sight. He was a man who believed he had outsmarted time itself. But as the 2026 evidence proves, time eventually runs out for everyone. Rex Heuermann was a man of precision. An architect by trade, he understood structure, stability, and the way things are built to last. He applied this same calculated mindset to his crimes, believing he could design a perfect disappearance. For years, he operated under the assumption that his coastal shadow strategy was foolproof. He chose burial sites where the shifting tides and high-density brush would act as a natural veil. He was a predator who believed he had outsmarted the very geography of Long Island. But arrogance is a dangerous trait for a killer. The 2026 investigation has exposed the fatal flaw in his design. He believed that what is buried is forgotten. He didn't account for the fact that forensic science doesn't just advance, it evolves. The geological secrets he relied on to hide his victims have now become the primary evidence against him. By analyzing the unique soil, compaction, and mineral displacement at the 2026 excavation sites, investigators have proven that these weren't random acts of violence. They were carefully orchestrated events, mapped out by a man who treated the dunes like a blueprint for murder. The physical evidence found in the sand was only half of the story. In a stunning turn of events, during the latest 2026 search warrant, investigators seized a cache of encrypted drives that had been hidden with professional-grade security. For years, these drives were a digital black hole. But with the decryption capabilities available in 2026, the black hole has been forced to reveal its contents. What was found inside is chilling. The drives contained a meticulous digital footprint, a trophy room of data. That directly contradicts the defense's claims of a second, unidentified perpetrator. We are talking about historical cell site data, search queries for specific forensic techniques, and a timeline of movements that matches the 2026 excavation findings to the minute. This digital evidence shatters the image of the family man his legal team has tried to protect. It reveals the psychological profile of a killer who believed his earliest crimes were not only geologically erased, but digitally. Invisible. The encrypted secrets of 2026 have finally brought the truth into the light of the courtroom. The defense's strategy has long relied on the lack of direct link. Theory arguing that without a DNA match for every single victim, there is room for doubt. The 2026 breakthroughs have effectively dismantled this defense. How can you argue for a second killer when the burlap fibers, the soil chemistry, and the digital logs all converge on a single residence in Massapequa Park? Investigators have used the 2026 geological data to create a 4D reconstruction of the crime scenes, proving that the disposal methods remain consistent for over 2 decades. This consistency points to a singular predator with a singular ritual. The defense's claims of a phantom killer are being replaced by the undeniable reality of a monster who operated in plain sight. As the 2026 trial proceedings continue, the evidence is no longer a collection of scattered clues. It is an airtight conviction built on the very earth Heuermann tried to exploit. He thought the coastal shadows would protect him forever, but the light of 2026 has left him with nowhere to hide. Justice is often described as a slow-moving wheel, but in the case of the Long Island serial killer, it felt like a wheel that had been frozen in time. For over 20 years, the families of the identified and the unidentified alike lived in a state of suspended grief. They walked the streets of Long Island knowing a predator was among them, breathing the same salty air, hiding behind the mask of an architect and a neighbor. The spring of 2026 has finally changed the narrative. The trial proceedings, fueled by this mountain of new forensic evidence, have moved from a search for answers to a declaration of truth. This isn't just about a conviction. It's about the recognition of every life that was treated as disposable. The 2026 breakthroughs have ensured that Rex Heuermann will no longer be remembered for his precision or his intellect, but for the utter failure of his attempt to outrun the truth. The weight of justice is heavy. On this year, it is finally with absolute The most profound impact of the 2026 discoveries isn't found in a lab or a courtroom, it's found in the quiet homes of the victims' families. This spring, for the first time in 2 decades, names were spoken that had been replaced by police file numbers. The Peaches remains and the toddler found in 2011 are no longer just cold case statistics. They are daughters, sisters, and children whose stories have been reclaimed. This emotional closure is the true legacy of the 2026 excavation. It proves that no victim is ever truly lost, and no case is ever truly cold as long as there are those willing to look deeper. The families who waited in the shadows for 20 years can finally see the light. The coastal graveyard that once symbolized fear has been transformed into a site of remembrance and advocacy. Because as of the breakthroughs we've witnessed this year, the silence of Gilgo Beach has been replaced by a chorus of voices demanding that no predator ever believes they can hide their crimes in the sand again. The Long Island serial killer case will go down in history as the turning point for forensic technology. It taught us that the Earth remembers what humans try to forget. It proved that the digital ghosts we leave behind will eventually catch up to us. But most importantly, it reminded us that every victim deserves a name, a story, and a day in court. As the sun sets on Gilgo Beach in 2026, the shadows are finally gone. The predator is in a cage, and the truth is etched in the sediment for all to see. The investigation into the coastal shadows may be ending, but the lessons learned here will protect the victims of tomorrow. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the darkness. Justice has finally come home. I am the Cold Case Archive. The search for truth never ends. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Stay vigilant.